Hello and welcome to Future Thinking with Stylus. I'm your host, Christian Ward, Head of Brand Engagement and Multimedia Strategy at Stylus. Today, I'm joined by Jay Richards, founder of Imagen, a marketing agency that enables brands to crowdsource brutally honest insights from a community of Gen Z consultants. We're going to be discussing some new reports from Imagen that reveal the latest Gen Z attitudes to sports and luxury, and find out how this generation is reacting to COVID constraints and the ongoing protests in support of Black Lives Matter. So thank you for joining me, Jay. First of all, I'd like to ask you a couple of reports that Imagen has released, one on sports with the NFL and one on luxury with Stella McCartney. Could you take us through the key findings?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for having me again, Christian. And Stylus, having me back again, which is cool. But yeah, so from our Gen Z on Sport report with the NFL, we really got to see how our Gen Z community are really big second screeners. So 78% of them say that they are using multiple devices at once, which really then calls into questions when everyone says how much they love vanity metrics, like views and likes. If Gen Z aren't fully paying attention to the content, then should we really celebrate those metrics? And that was one of the big points that really came out of our report with the NFL. And then from our report with Stella McCartney, Gen Z on luxury, we heard really from our community how they want brands to invest heavily into social causes. And it can't just be an afterthought anymore. The idea of we donate 0.00001% of our profits to help albino rhinos is no longer a thing. I don't think brands can get away with that anymore. And one thing our community was saying is that they want the influence of those brands to really challenge those brands. They were saying platforms like TikTok and Snapchat are perfect for influencers to go behind the scenes at these big luxury brands or at brands in general and really go, okay, let's see what's going on behind the scenes. Let's see how truly socially conscious you are. Let's see how truly sustainable you are. And that's what Gen Z are calling for. They're calling for that transparency. I always hated the word authenticity, but they're calling for that transparency for brands to be able to go, okay, this is what we are really like. These are the problems we've got, and this is how we're looking to address them. So those are two of the really big key findings that we found from the reports.
So with that second point, did Stella McCartney, did they take on these findings and start to act on them?
Yeah, so we're actually going to be working with them over the next probably 12 to 18 months, really delving into that. Obviously, the lockdown played a massive part in us not being able to dive into it too much at the moment. But yeah, once we get back into the real world and we can start getting people in rooms again, we are really going to be diving heavy in on that. And I think the great thing about Stella McCartney is that they're willing to look into this and to take risks. And they're a vegan vegetarian brand already. So they're already looking internally to see how they can improve these things. And we're just being able to be added into the mix and bring our community into that conversation.
So just for people who aren't aware of the work you do, and you talk about the community, could you perhaps just explain a little bit more about how you work with Gen Z youths around the country?
Yeah, so at Imagen, our mission is to enable Gen Z to shape their future. And we know the best way for them to do that is to work with brands. Because let's be honest, brands shape countries and culture probably better than most governments do. So what we do is we enable agencies and brands to build their branding, their marketing, and their products by enabling them to collaborate with our community of Gen Z consultants. So we have 2,000 plus 16 to 25-year-olds across the country who work as consultants for us. And a brand like the NFL, they can come to us and they say, okay, we've got 5 marketing ideas we want to do for Gen Z. What will happen is our consultants can then view those 5 ideas via our app. They can then give you video-based feedback on maybe the 2 ideas they love and how you can improve them. So for that brand, they've then sense checked their ideas. They've got that great depth of insight and feedback, but it's video content. So when they need to speak to the senior leaders, they can go, hey, look, here's all the content of Gen Z telling you what's going on. So that's the feedback side of things. And then we have the ideation side of things. Some brands or agencies will come and go, we have no idea what we want to do. And our consultants can come up with brand new campaigns, brand new ideas for that brand, which a brand can then take forward or bring the consultants in-house to help them to build it.
So it sounds like you've already got quite a good sort of virtual online ecosystem in place to work this way. How has lockdown changed the way that you've been working?
Yeah, as you can imagine, brands have obviously stopped spending as much as they were, but thankfully we've, as I was saying to you a second ago before we jumped on, is we've won some new great clients recently in the last few weeks, and it's been loads of fun. And our community has just been extremely engaged through this whole period. We were able to talk with them and keep many of them working, which is a big mission of ours, just to make sure we keep as many as we can working, because 30% of them are have been furloughed or made redundant recently. So we're able to keep them working with our current client work, which they're really, really enjoying. And just to be transparent, we're being completely honest with them. We're telling our community how it is. We're telling them where we feel like we're dropping the ball, and asking them to help us to engage the community better, but also to generate new ideas how to win new business, which is cool. We had a load of competitions that we've done recently, getting them to give us ideas about how we could win new business and paying them for those ideas, which has been great.
Great. So you say, I mean, obviously a lot of them are furloughed. How are they spending their time aside from working with you guys, of course? I mean, obviously at Stylus, we've done a lot of work on, sort of entertainment and media in lockdown. I've written about, the musicians performing live on Instagram and so forth. There seems to be a lot of creativity around at the moment for people who, have some time on their hands. What sort of things have you been seeing?
Yeah, so a lot of our consultants are just excited to get into new things, because the thing about Gen Z is they're co-creators, so they love the idea of being able to create cool things with cool human beings. So there is, when you see what they're doing out in the world, they're doing a lot of TikTok, they're doing a lot of Snapchat, they're just creating and engaging with the community outside of the normal parameters of whatever we think normal is. And one cool thing we've seen is a lot of them are gaming a lot more. The gaming industry is growing by 50% over the last 3 months. And what we're seeing is a lot of our consultants are saying, I'm playing computer games a lot more, but from a mental health perspective. They're saying, I want to jump on and play computer games because I know one of my mates will talk more if we're playing FIFA about his mental health than he would if I tried to give him a phone call or do a Zoom. So that's what we're seeing a lot of. They're checking in on their friends using games, and they're also really just engaging with the wider community and using the platforms that are at their hands.
That's really interesting. I mean, it sort of leads into my next question, which is really about how, what sort of feedback you're getting about the response to the challenges of lockdown and also the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, it'd be really interesting to hear if we know that this is a quite activist generation. Has that really been boosted recently?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. So our community, let's be honest, they're out there on the front lines. They're making their voices heard. And as you guys will know, anytime you see anything, it's Gen Z leading the charge. And as you can imagine, for me personally, Black Lives Matter is a movement that's really personal to me as a Black man. And it's inspiring, to see Gen Z making their opinions known. 30% of them have obviously lost their jobs, as I was saying a second ago, lost their jobs as into redundancy or being furloughed, sorry. So there's a lot of fear within our community at the moment, and just within the Gen Z community in general, about what the future holds. And we're just doing all we can to keep our personal community engaged and motivated and working, which is a big thing, just trying to get them as much work as humanly possible to work with brands. But I definitely think there's a lot of fear, because for them, this is the first big crisis they've come across. For you and I, we've seen these kind of things, maybe not pandemics, but multiple crashes and things happen over the years. We're kind of used to it. But for these guys, it's the first time. And some of them were getting their first jobs. So they were last in, first out at most companies. It's kind of, what do they do with that? And I think from brands, the things that they want to see is they want to see a brand be calm, be present, and be hopeful. So they don't want brands panicking about the future, or, sorry, it's a police siren as always. So they don't want to see brands panicking about the future or disappearing off their timelines. And they want brands to be hopeful that it will change and things will move on. And with regards to Black Lives Matter in itself, they want action. A social media post on its own isn't action. They want brands to invest their money into being anti-racist. Be anti-racist. Invest cash, hard-earned cash that you've made into being anti-racist. That's what Gen Z are looking for. And the thing is, that's what they expect. They're setting the bar very high, and brands need to reach it, or they'll call you out on it.
So has your community had those conversations directly with any clients yet? I mean, are those conversations going on?
Not with our clients as of yet, because really we're trying to figure out how we make that happen. So we've got some work that we're doing with the NFL next week. And in there will be conversations around that. Because I think for a lot of time, our consultants, when they're when they're talking to us, they're like, hey, I know change isn't going to happen overnight. I just want to give you my opinion and let you know what I expect.
And what are you hearing from your clients in terms of, everybody generally wants to be doing something positive, I think,
Yeah.
I hope. But clearly, as you say, there are things you can do which are somewhat tokenistic, and there are things that you can do which are, properly impactful. But, sometimes those bigger things can be challenges for brands. Have you heard those sorts of concerns from clients?
Yeah. So the good thing is for us, our clients have come out and they've just declared boldly that the murder of George Floyd is exactly what it was. It was murder. And I'm thankful for that. And they've really raised their voice for the Black community. And our community want more of it. That's the truth. They want brands to take this seriously. They want brands to invest financially into this. And I think sometimes the feedback from our consultants and the feedback from our brands when they're talking to us, it's like, hey, what can we do? The same thing you're saying that doesn't come across tokenistic. And I think as Gen Z are holding brands to a higher standard, Gen Z are understanding the systemic racism that's happened for years. And they want brands to have those uncomfortable conversations to see how they can change that. And they're holding brands to that higher standard. And I think one of the main ways we're seeing our community say that they want to, what they want brands to do is we want brands to come to the Black community, ask the Black community what they currently have. A lot of time brands will start a new initiative without asking what we already have, and you're giving us 15 types of the same initiative. So ask them what they already have, and then ask them what they want. Ask the Black community, what do we want? What do we want? And when you come and ask those two questions, you will get the right answer. But if you just do something because it's a knee-jerk reaction or you're scared or whatever it may be, you won't end up with anything good. So the good thing is that brands are open to these conversations, hopefully. But I definitely think it's a journey. That's the thing. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we've got to take our time.
Yeah, I mean, in that respect, have you seen brands either from your own client base or beyond that you think are sort of really doing the right thing and getting and understanding that, as you say, it's a marathon and there needs to be systemic change? Have you seen that kind of reaction?
Yeah, Glossier. I will shout it from the rooftops. Phenomenal job. They came out and I loved what Nike did. I loved what Adidas did, and they all were reposting each other's stuff, which is phenomenal. But Glossier were one of the first brands I saw personally that came out and said, okay, it's $500 million to Black charities. It's $500 million to Black beauty businesses. Let's help. And I think that's the difference. Sometimes it can be, hey, here's $500,000 in $500,000's worth of mentoring. And it's like, dude, we don't need any more mentoring. We need to try and address the systemic imbalances that are in the world. And I think Glossier just did a phenomenal job of that, really just going and saying, okay, this is our space. We're in the beauty space. This is what we're going to do in our space to help Black beauty brands. And I actually got friends that have accessed that fund really quickly and been able to do stuff in their businesses in the last couple of weeks that they wouldn't have been able to do without that Glossier money.
Yeah, it's impressive. I guess you are, you're working with the next generation of business leaders, hopefully. So in some respects, although this is an extremely difficult time and challenging time, you must be quite hopeful for the future in terms of the fact that these people are, they are thinking about these things. They want to make change. They want to make positive impact.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, 100%. I think the one thing I love about Gen Z is they're 100% an activist generation. If you look at Black Lives Matter, you just see so many Gen Z at the forefront. If you look at fighting for trans rights, fighting for LGBTQ+ rights, fighting for women's rights, Gen Z are at the forefront of it all. I have Gen Z talking about the correct pronouns to use all the time. They're very much at the forefront of this stuff, going, hey, they see the injustices of the world and they don't just go, oh, that's a shame. It's such an injustice. They go, what can we do what little bits can we do to make incremental change? And I think Gen Z are probably different to previous generations just because they've had enough. They've seen the way older generations may have an archaic way of thinking, and their thinking can be sometimes quite divisive or pointless. And and Gen Z want to see a change. So it's not to say that older generations don't know what they're doing, because older generations are phenomenal. They've helped us. They've paved the way for Gen Z. And I think Gen Z are very much looking at how can we build upon what happened in previous generations and not go backwards like you would probably see with certain presidents around the world, which makes us seem like we're living 100 years ago than where we are living right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm sort of anxious about is the idea that we lose, or the movement loses momentum, and as other, we're living in crazy times, right? So a lot of crazy stuff is happening all at once. Who knows what the next crazy thing is? How do you feel like, whether it's brands or whether it's your, what you're hearing from your own community, how is this energy going to be maintained?
Yeah, that's such a phenomenal question. I think the only way that energy is maintained is by brands leading the charge. I said right at the start of all of this, brands can change countries and cultures probably more than governments can. Policy and all of that kind of stuff isn't, let's be honest, it's not going to create the change that we want. If brands are demanding stuff from their consumers and being honest with consumers and saying, hey, I saw Pepsi have looked at some of their brands that they own and they go, hey, this brand is racist. We've got a black woman's face on the front of this brand. It looks like it's from slavery era. Let's do something about it. Do you know what I mean? And I think you look at the Premier League last night, Black Lives Matter on the back of the shirts. They've gone and removed football players' names. Football players are the brand. They're a massive part of the brand. You've removed those names and put Black Lives Matter, saying that this right now is more important. And one of the key things I think for brands at the moment is to drive home that, hey, because we're saying Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that all lives don't matter. Doesn't mean that white lives don't matter. It's just a fact that right now that Black lives are being killed. We're being murdered for just being Black. That right now that the systemic issues in the world, that if you and I walked into the same room together, the way people would interact with you and interact with me are just wildly different. It's not your fault. It's not your upbringing. It's nothing to do with that. It's just a fact the way the world is. And I think it's an opportunity for brands now to go, okay, we understand the issues in the world. We understand the power that we have as a brand, and let's do something about it monetarily. Let's not do something about it with a great black square post. Let's not do it with a statement from our CEO. Let's get cold hard cash and put that into the change that we want to see. Because if brands do it, then everyone else will start following the lead. And I think it's very hard for people to offer their racist views around football when they see their favorite footballer wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt.
Well, I think that's a very powerful statement to finish with. Thank you for a really fascinating and brilliant conversation, Jay. I'd like to thank my guest, Jay Richards, and thank you for listening and watching. And please join us next time for more Future Thinking from Stylus.